You check your savings account and feel that familiar knot in your stomach. $3,200. You're 35 years old and you have $3,200 saved, while financial advisors keep saying you should have over $100,000 by now. Either you're catastrophically behind, or those benchmarks are completely disconnected from reality. Turns out it's both. The average American in their 30s has around $6,000 saved, not $50,000, not $30,000, $6,000. That's barely enough to cover a minor medical emergency or keep you afloat for 1 month if you lose your job. Meanwhile, every personal finance article acts like having a 6-month emergency fund, plus retirement savings, plus investments, is just standard operating procedure for normal humans. Here's what nobody mentions when they publish those terrifying charts showing you should have twice your salary saved by 40. They're using median numbers from people who actually have retirement accounts, which automatically excludes roughly half the population. It's like calculating average height but only measuring NBA players. Let's break down what's actually happening at each age, because the gap between expectation
look at this.
and reality
The difference is huge. Can you
People in
believe?
their 20s are supposed to have 1 year's salary saved according to traditional advice. The actual median, around $1,500, not $40,000 or $50,000. $1,500. Most people in their 20s are drowning in student loans, paying rent that consumes 40% of their income, and trying to figure out why their degree in communications didn't lead to a $75,000 starting salary. By 30, conventional wisdom says you should have your full annual salary tucked away. Reality check. The median savings for someone at 30 is approximately $3,500. If you're making $50,000 a year, you're supposed to have $50,000 saved. Instead, you've got enough to maybe buy a used Honda Civic if you're lucky. The 30s are where the pressure really intensifies. Financial experts claim you need 3 times your salary by 40. So if you're earning $60,000, that's $180,000 in savings and investments. Actual median savings for people in their late 30s? Roughly $10,000. We're not talking about being slightly behind. We're talking about being off by a factor of 18. What's driving this massive disconnect? Start with wages that haven't kept pace with literally anything. Housing costs have exploded while salaries crawled forward at a snail's pace. Your parents bought a house for 3 times their annual income. You're looking at properties that cost 6 or 7 times what you make. That difference doesn't just disappear. It comes directly out of what you could be saving. Then there's the student loan crisis that previous generations love to pretend doesn't exist. The average borrower is carrying around $30,000 in student debt, paying $300 to $400 monthly just to chip away at loans for an education that was supposed to guarantee financial security. That's $400 every single month that can't go towards savings, investments, or building wealth. Healthcare costs have turned into a financial minefield. Even with insurance, one unexpected medical issue can obliterate years of careful saving. A brief hospital stay can easily run $10,000 out of pocket. An ambulance ride costs more than a weekend vacation. People are rationing insulin and skipping necessary procedures because healthcare in America has become a luxury item. But here's where it gets really interesting, and this is the part that should make you question everything you've been told about falling behind. The people who actually have substantial savings by 40 aren't magically better at budgeting or more disciplined about skipping lattes. They had help. Parental support for down payments, family money covering emergencies so savings stay intact, inheritance arriving at convenient moments, the ability to live at home rent-free while building a nest egg. These aren't secrets or scandals, they're just realities that nobody talks about when comparing your savings to some mythical average. Research from the Federal Reserve shows that people who receive even a modest $10,000 financial gift are twice as likely to have substantial savings 10 years later. Not because they saved that specific money, but because it prevented them from derailing their progress when emergencies hit. The person who got help buying their first car didn't need to drain savings when their vehicle died. The person whose parents covered their wedding could keep their emergency fund intact. These advantages compound invisibly over decades. Meanwhile, you're being compared to people who started the race halfway to the finish line and told you're losing because you didn't run fast enough. The financial advice industry loves pretending everyone starts from zero with equal obstacles. They don't. Some people are running uphill in the rain. Others are coasting downhill on a bicycle someone bought them. By the time you hit 50, traditional advice insists you need 6 times your salary saved. At $70,000 annual income, that's $420,000. Actual median savings for people in their 50s? Around $50,000. And that number is inflated by the small percentage who actually do have substantial retirement accounts. Half of people in their 50s have less than $25,000 saved total. These aren't failures or cautionary tales. They're normal people who encountered normal life, a divorce that split assets, a layoff during the 2008 crash, parents who needed financial help, kids who needed braces and college funds, a medical emergency that insurance decided wasn't quite emergency enough to cover fully. The retirement industry pushes this narrative that you're behind because it benefits them. Financial advisors need you anxious so you'll pay for their services. Investment companies need you feeling inadequate so you'll dump money into their funds. The entire apparatus depends on you believing that everyone else has it figured out while you're uniquely struggling. They're not figuring it out either. They're just quieter about drowning. What nobody mentions is that the rules changed mid-game. Pensions disappeared. Social Security became uncertain. Healthcare costs exploded. Housing became unaffordable. Job security evaporated, but the savings target stayed the same, as if none of that mattered. You're being measured against standards designed for an economy that no longer exists. Does this mean you shouldn't save? Obviously not. Every dollar you manage to set aside matters. But it means you need to stop measuring yourself against fictional benchmarks created by people who don't live in your reality. The person who has $15,000 saved at 35, despite student loans, medical bills, and rent that eats half their paycheck, isn't behind. They're surviving a rigged system and still managing to build something. Stop comparing your savings to averages that exclude half the population. Stop feeling inadequate because you don't have 6 months of expenses saved when you're still paying off the ambulance ride from 2 years ago. Stop believing you failed at adulting because your retirement account doesn't match some chart created by people who retired with pensions. Your real competition isn't some median savings number. It's whether you're making progress given your actual circumstances. Did you save anything this year? You're ahead of where you were. Can you cover a minor emergency without a credit card? You're doing better than millions. Are you contributing something to retirement even if it's small? You're building momentum. The gap between where you are and where they say you should be isn't a personal failure. It's evidence that the benchmarks are broken. You're not falling behind. You're navigating an economic reality that makes those old rules increasingly irrelevant. And recognizing that difference might be the most financially intelligent thing you do all year. Looking at those savings numbers shouldn't make you feel like a failure. It should make you question who set the standards and why they're so detached from what's actually possible. You're not broken. The system measuring you is. Focus on your trajectory, not their benchmarks, because progress in your reality beats perfection in their fantasy every single time.